Hello friends, in this video tutorial, we are going to learn how to make dynamic dependent select box or drop down box in Node.js Express application. There are lots of viewer has requested us to make dynamic dependent select box in Node.js. So here we have used country, state and city drop down example. For understand the functionality of dynamic dependent select box. Dynamic dependent means child select box data will be depend on the selection of parent select box. So if we have changed parent select box value, then child select box data will be changed without refresh of web page. Now let's start discussing this topic. So this is our testing database. And under this database we have one country, state, city table. With table column like it, country, state and city column. And under this table, we have already inserted some data. So we will use this table data for create dynamic dependent select box in Node.js. So first we need to download and install Node.js Express application. So for this, we have go to command prompt and first go into Node directory, in which we want to download and install Node Express application. So here we have to create one dynamic dependent directory. And then after, we have goes into dynamic dependent directory. So under this directory, now we need to download and install Node.js Express application. So first, we want to install Express generator. So here, we have to run following command. So this command will install Express generator. Next we want to install Express application. So for this, we have to run following command. So this command will install Express application. So after running the above command, you will get following instructions. And in the above command, Ajax is a template engine of the Express framework which we will use in Node application. Next we want to install dependencies. So for this, we have to run following command, which will install Node.js Express framework dependencies. After this, we have go to text editor, and here, we can see that Express application directory structure. Now we want to make database connection, so first we need to download MySQL module. So here in command prompt, we have to run following command. So this command will download and install Node Express MySQL module. Now we have go to text editor, and here we want to create database connection file. So here, we have create new JavaScript file in the root folder, with file name like database.javascript, and here we will use this file for make MySQL database connection. Now under this file, we have to write constant MySQL variable is equal to require function. And under this function, we have to write MySQL. So by using this code, it will include MySQL module under this file. After this, we want to define configuration for creating MySQL database connection. So here, we have to write constant connection variable is equal to MySQL.create connection function, so this function will make MySQL database connection. And under this function, we have to define MySQL database configuration in the JSON format. So first, we have to define host for MySQL database connection. So in the first key, we have to write host, and in value, we have to write localhost. Next, we want to define database name, so for this, in the key, we have to write database, and in value, we have to write testing. After this, we want to define username of the MySQL database. So for this, in the key, we have to write user. And in the value, we have to write root. And lastly, in the MySQL database configuration, we want to define password of the MySQL database. So for this, here we have to write password, and in the value, we have to leave blank. So after define this configuration, it will make MySQL database connection. Now we want to execute MySQL database connection. So for this, we have to write connection.connect function. So this function has been used for create a MySQL connection. And under this function, we have to write one callback function with error as parameter. Now under this function, we have to write if statement. And under condition, we have to write error variable. So this condition will check if there is any error occur. Then it will execute if block of code, and under this block, we have to write throw error, so it will display database connection error. But suppose there is no any error occur, then it will execute else block of code. And under this block we have to write console.log function. And under this function, we have to write MySQL database is connected successfully. And lastly, we want to publish this MySQL database connection. So for this, here we have to write module.exports is equal to connection variable. So here, our MySQL database connection code is ready. Now we have go to text editor, and goes into roots directory. And here, we have to open index.javascript file, and this is root file of this Express application. Under this file, first we want to include database connection file. For make database connection, so for this, here we have to write database variable is equal to require function. And under this function, we have to define path of database connection file. So after including this file, it will be connected with MySQL database. Now we have goes into get root, which has been load index template file in the browser. So when this file has been loaded, then we want to display country, state and city select box, and we want to fill country select box with data. And state select box, and city select box, data will be filled dynamically. So for fill country select box, we want to fetch unique country name from MySQL table. So for this, here we have to write database variable.query function with two parameter. In first parameter, we have to write MySQL query, so here we have to write select distinct country from country state city table, order by country in ascending order. And in second parameter, we have to write callback function with two parameter, like error and data variable. Now under this function, we have to put this code, and after this, we have to send country data to this index template file, so here we have to write country data key, and in value, we have to write data variable, so by this country data variable, we will fill country select box with data. Now we have to open index template file from this views directory. And from this file, we have to remove this code, and paste this HTML code. Now under this file, we have to create country select box, so for this, here we have to write select tag with name is equal to country, and id attribute is equal to country. Under this select box, we have create one option tag with blank value, and in option text, we have to write select country. Now we want to fill this country select box with data. So for this, here we have to write Node.js code syntax, and between this, we have to write for loop, and under condition, we have to write count variable value is equal to 0, count variable value is less than the value of country data dot length. And count variable value is increment by 1, so first we have to close bracket for this loop. Now under this loop, we have to write option tag with value attribute is equal to open and close node code syntax, and between this, we have to write equal to sign. And after this, we have to write country data variable with count index.country. So it will fill option value attribute with data. Now in option text, we have to write open and close node syntax, and after this, we have to write equal to sign. And again, we have to write country data variable with count index.country. So on every loop, it will fill county select box with data. Next, we want to make state select box, so for this, here we have to write select tag with name is equal to state, and id attribute is equal to state. So this code will create state select box. Same way, we want to create city select box. So for this, here we have to write select tag with name attribute is equal to city, and id attribute is equal to city. So this code will make city select box. So here, we have create country state and city select box. So here we have fill select box with dynamic data in Node. Now we have check output in the browser. So we have go into command prompt and start Node.js server by run following command. Now in the browser, we have to write localhost 3000. So here on web page, we can see country, state and city select box on the web page. And here, we can see that country select box has been filled with data. And state and city select box has no data, so state select box will be filled with data. When we have select country select box, and city select box will be filled with data. When we will select value from state select box, so for this thing, we will use JavaScript Fetch API, which will send Ajax request for fetch data, and then after filled child select box with data, without refresh of web page. So for this things, we have to index template file, and goes into JavaScript code part. And here, we have create one function, with underscore sign, with parameter like element. And under this function, we have to write return statement, and after this, we have to write document.getElement by it function, with one parameter like element variable. So it will return property of particular HTML element. After this, we have to create another function with name like fetch data, with three parameter like parent element, child element and type variable. This function will send Ajax request using JavaScript Fetch API for get data from server. So here, we have to write JavaScript Fetch function, and under this function, we have to write URL. So here, we have to write /getDataRoot with question mark sign, with type is equal to type variable. After this, we have to write and sign. And after this, we have to write parent value is equal to parent element variable dot value. So here in parent value, we have sent parent element value, has been sent with URL, and it will use get method for send data to server. Now after this, we have to write then function, and under this function, we have to write callback function with responses parameter. Under this function, we have to write return statement with response.json function. After this, we have to write then function, and under this function, we have to write callback function with response data parameter, which will return data in JSON format. Under this function, we have to write HTML variable is equal to blank value. Below this function, we have to write if statement, and under condition, we have to write type variable value is equal to load state. So if this condition true, then it will execute if block of code. Under this block, we have to write HTML variable is equal to this HTML code. After this, we have again write if statement, and under condition, we have to write type variable value is equal to load city. So suppose this condition true, then it will execute if block of code. And under this block, we have to write HTML variable is equal to this HTML code. After this, we have to write for loop, and under condition, we have to write count variable is equal to 0. Count variable value is less than the value of response data.length. And count variable value increment by 1. So by using this loop, it will fetch data from response data variable. Under this loop, we have to write HTML variable, and here we have to append HTML code like option tag with value is equal to response data variable with count index, and an option text. we have to write response data variable with count index, so on every loop, it will store data in HTML variable. Now here, we have to write child element variable dot inner HTML variable is equal to HTML variable. So this code will fill child element select box with data. Now we want to call this function when we have select country. So for this, here we have to write underscore with select box it country. With on change event is equal to callback function, so when we have select country, then it will execute this block of code. And under this function, we have called fetch data function with 3 parameter. In first parameter, we have to write underscore with country select box it country. In second parameter, we have to write underscore function with select box it state. And in third parameter, we have to write load state. So when we have select country from country select box, then state select box will be filled with data. After this, when we have select state, then city select box must be filled with data. So for this, here we have to write underscore function with select box it select. And after this, we have to write on change event is equal to callback function. So when we have select state, then this block of code will execute. Under this block, we have called fetch data function with 3 parameter. In first parameter, we have to write underscore with country select box it country. In second parameter, we have to write underscore function with select box it state. And in third parameter, we have to write load city. So when we have select state from state select box, then city select box will be filled with data without refresh of web page. Now we have goes to index roots file, and here we have to create root for handle fetch API request. So here, we have to write root variable dot get function with 2 parameter. In first parameter, we have to write slash get data, and in second parameter, we have to write callback function with 3 parameter like request, response and next variable. Under this function, first we want to store URL variable data in local variable. So here, we have to write type variable is equal to request.query.type variable. And search query variable is equal to request.query.parent value. So here we have store URL variable data in local variable. Below this, we have to write if statement, and under condition, we have to write type variable value is equal to load state. So suppose this condition true, then it will execute if block of code. Under this block, we have to write query variable is equal to select distinct state as data from country state city table, where country is equal to $sign with open and close bracket. And between this, we have to write search query, and after this, we have to write order by state column data in ascending order. So this query is used for fetch particular country state data. After this, we have again write if statement, and under condition, we have to write type variable is equal to load city. So if this condition true, then it will execute if block of code. And under this block, we have to write query variable is equal to select city as data from country state city table, and in where condition, we have to write state is equal to $sign, and after this, we have to write open and close bracket. And between this, we have to write search query variable, and after this, we have to write order by city table column data in ascending order. So this query will fetch city data of particular selected state. Now we want to execute above query. So for this, here we have to write database variable.query function with 2 parameter. In first parameter, we have to write query variable, and in second parameter, we have to write callback function with two parameter like error and data variable. Under this function, we have to create one data array variable. And after this, we have to write data dot for each function. And under this function, we have to write callback function with row variable as parameter. Under this loop, we have to write data array variable dot push function. And under this function, we have to write row dot data. So on every loop, it will store data under this data array variable. Now we want to send this data to Fetch API in JSON format. So for this, here we have to write response.json function. And under this function, we have to write data array variable, so it will send data to Fetch API in JSON format. So here our code is ready. Now we have save it, and goes to command prompt. First we have to stop this previous process. And after this, again we have run this command, which will start Node.js server. Now here in the browser, we have to refresh web page, and after refresh of web page, here we can see three select box for select country, state and city data. And here, only country select box has data, and state and city select box has been blank. Now we have select country from country select box, and after selecting country, here we can see that state select box has been filled with data. So now we have select state from state select box, and after selecting state data, here we can see that city select box has been filled with city data. So here dynamic dependent select box has been very useful feature. And here value of child select box has been based on value of parent select box. And here we have used Vanilla JavaScript Fetch API with Node.js Express application. So here child select box data has been filled with data without refresh of web page. So here we have stopped this tutorial. If have any query regarding this tutorial, you can write your query in comment box, and lastly thank you for watching this tutorial.